The shade I got is for someone that is way paler than me. Hey guys, welcome back to the Clean Beauty Code. I'm so excited for this video because we're talking concealers. I love concealers. We're talking comparisons of concealers. We're talking about ones that were there were a lot of new concealers towards the end of last year. We're talking comparing, contrasting. We're talking versus my favorites. What's my favorite? What do I think is best and for whom? I get so many questions on concealers, and I feel like it's really hard to answer in full just not comparing without comparing to everything. Not everything I own, because that would be such a long video. If you want to see that, I can totally do that, but we're talking the ones I talk about the most, the ones that are really popular and kind of newer launches, and we're gonna kind of really deep dive into what's the difference between them and all of that. And yeah, I just want to jump into this video and get started because I feel like this is gonna be the longest video ever. So if you're excited for this video and more videos like this, then please like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this clean concealer comparison video. Concealer comparison, let's jump right in. I'm not grabbing in any particular order, just kind of in the order that I kind of grabbed from the basket that I have. So the first one is this one from Céla. So this is meant to be an all-arounder concealer. So it's not just meant for your under eyes. It can cover hyperpigmentation. It can cover acne and all of that really well. I know most concealers are kind of meant for everything, but this has specifically talked about covering hyperpigmentation and all of that. So I wear the shade 13N. Is that... No, I'm not. 13N in this, and I just want to swatch that for you on the back of my hand just so you can see. I really like this concealer. Now, this is one that I will use. I've used under my eyes. It's great. I don't really have creasing with this. What I prefer this concealer for is hyperpigmentation covering. It does such a good job at covering hyperpigmentation, dark marks, all of that, and acne marks. I don't find that it clings to dry patches or anything like that. It has a nice medium coverage. This is one that I've been grabbing a ton because I have the gnarliest hyperpigmentation right now, even though it's starting to fade, especially on my chin. I did have some on my nose, but that kind of went away. So now we're just focusing on the chin because the weather has been destroying my skin. But anyways, this has been great and truly is a godsend, and one that I think if you struggle with hyperpigmentation and you want kind of an all well-rounded one that doesn't cling to dryness, doesn't cling to acne, and just kind of sits, doesn't add any additional shine, it like just sits on top of it in a good way. It doesn't look like makeup, blends like a dream, and covers what you need covered, but also can be used under your eyes and is a comfortable wear under your eyes. This is great, and I find that usually when something's good at covering hyperpigmentation or acne and stuff like that, I don't love it under the eyes. This is an exception. It is so nice. Now we're going to talk about another one that has medium coverage, and this is from Live Tinted. I am such a big fan of this concealer. I wear the shade 16 in this, and I'm going to do a swatch on the back of my hand for you. This is nice medium coverage. It's hydrating. This is one that I like to let sit. The color difference is actually bananas. This is one that I like to let sit for about a minute and a half and then blend out. I find that when I don't do that, sometimes I can get settling into fine lines. Nothing that's too extreme or anything, but it's just something to note if you have creasy under eyes, which I do have. I like to let it sit and then blend it out, and then it doesn't give me any problems. It's a nice medium coverage. It gives me nice brightness, the shade 16 does, and overall it's one that I grab a lot and I kind of rotate throughout my collection, and it's one that you can use around your face. I prefer it under my eyes, and using something like the Ciaté or other concealers I'm going to mention for around my face. However, it does work for around the face. It's just not my preference in terms of formula, because I do find it to be a little bit thin, and not in a bad way thin, but just thin enough that I feel like if you have really, really dark hyperpigmentation, you kind of have to build it up a little bit more than I would like to. Next up, we have one I cannot shut up about, the Kofi Concealer. I love this. I wear the shade Mango Drop. This is probably, let me do a swatch on the back of my hand. This is probably my most repurchased by far. Yeah, this is definitely my most repurchased and most well-loved one, I would say. So again, I wear the shade Mango Drop. This is great. It has great medium coverage, and it blends like a dream with a brush, with a sponge, with your fingers. It's incredible. I know there's so many people that love this formula. It just sits so beautifully under the eyes, and this one I'll let sit for maybe, I let all my concealers sit, by the way, under the eyes, unless I say explicitly. I let them sit for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes, depending. If it's a 2-minute one, I will let you know. This one I would say 30 seconds to a minute, 30 minutes, 30 seconds to a minute. And I love this. Again, this is one I can blend with a brush, with a sponge, or with my finger, and it looks beautiful. It does have, it's not dewy. That's not the word I want to use, but it does have a little bit of dew. It doesn't settle down matte or full natural. It does have a little bit of dew, which I really enjoy, because when I wear something that is more of a dewy finish on the skin, something that is more natural or more matte under the eyes just doesn't look as natural. So that is great. It's a one that I wear with makeup, without makeup. It is so incredible. And again, nice medium coverage. My preference for concealers are kind of medium to medium plus coverage concealers. Sometimes I like light coverage under my eyes, depending. Actually, right now I'm kind of in a light coverage type of place, but it really depends on my mood. Anyways, I digress. Now we're talking about one that everyone was talking about at the end of last year, and they wanted comparisons to another one that also launched, the Westman Atelier concealer. Now, I find with this that the shade picking was really, really tough for me, so I'm just going to say that. But their website makes it so easy to return or exchange. The reason I have two is because I picked wrong the first time, and then they were like, oh, okay, what's the shade that you actually want? And I told them, they sent me the replacement, but they were like, you don't need to return the other one, which is really, really nice. They're really easy to work with, which I love. Now let's do the two shades I have. This one is Atelier T2. It's really hard to tell sometimes online what shades really look like. And then this is Atelier T1. Is it T1? Did I make that up? No, I didn't. T1. So we have T2 and T1 here. And these have really nice coverage. You can definitely build it up to be a little bit more on the full coverage side, even though to me, it's more of a medium plus coverage concealer. I do find that if you have more of, although it does have hydrating ingredients, if you have more of a dry under eye, I find that this one isn't my favorite. So if you have dry under eyes and you need something super hydrating, this is not going to be the one for you. However, it's nice. A very little bit of this goes a long way. I prefer blending this with my fingers, but you can use a brush or a sponge with this. I find that this is one I don't like to over powder. I don't really have creasing with this one either. But I find that when I do go a little bit more heavy with the powder, which I don't really go heavy with powder to begin with, but when I do go more heavy with the powder, I don't love the way that my under eyes look or feel by the end of the day, but it is a nice formula. It is a comfortable wear, and I feel like of some of the newer launches, which maybe I'll talk about the newest launch that it was kind of compared to, this one you kind of get more bang for your buck in terms of coverage and all of that. It's nice. It wears okay around the face. I do find that sometimes it can cling to stuff. However, for me, it kind of depends on what type of dryness it's clinging to, if that makes sense. But overall, it's a nice formula. Is it my favorite formula? No. Is it one that I grab a lot? No. However, when I do grab it, I do enjoy it, but again, it's not my favorite. Now we have the one that it was compared to, which is the Victoria Beckham Beauty. Now, both of these concealers are really expensive, but the Victoria Beckham Beauty one is definitely way more expensive, and the amount of product you get is a little bananas. So I have 2 shades, same issue with the Victoria Beckham Beauty one, except I didn't have an issue with the undertones or anything. I just went with one that was like way too dark for me. But I have 2 shades here. I have M1 and MD1. So we're gonna do a swatch of both. This is a click pen, which I do like that, especially for travel. That's MD1 right here, which was definitely a little too dark for me. So I was really happy that they made it really easy to exchange. And then they just told me, just keep the one that you have, because I'm not sure why they do that, or at least they did that at the time. I don't know if they're still doing that, but their returns and exchanges are really, really easy. And then we have the shade M1 here. It's a little tough to tell. There we go. So you can see the shade. It's right here. It blends really, really well into my skin. I will say it's a very my complexion shade, if that makes sense. But I really enjoy this formula. Of the 2 formulas, I said it when I compared them in a video, and I'm going to say it now. The Victoria Beckham Beauty one is my favorite. However, it is more light in coverage, and that is not going to work for everyone. It is a more light coverage formula. You can, if you let it sit and marinate, you can build it up a little bit. However, it is more of a light coverage concealer. I just want to make that clear. I really enjoy this. This does not crease. This does not crease. I don't know how, because it's a thin formula, but it doesn't crease. It's very, very impressive. I like the coverage. I like the way my under eyes feel. This is one that I do not over powder. Over powdering this is a mistake. At least for my under eyes, it never really settled the way that I wanted it to. So over powdering this is also a mistake, which I also found with the Westman Atelier. But with the Westman Atelier, I could powder it more. With the Victoria Beckham Beauty one, I don't really powder it. And I don't find that you need to. However, if you get runny on mascara, if you don't set your under eyes, which I know some people have that, then you can set it, but just do it really, really light. But I prefer, again, to not set this, more on the light coverage side. Of the 2, this one was my preference, and I know that that's bananas, but it just was. I like the way it wore and felt and all of that. Now we're going to move on to this. Now this is a foundation concealer stick, I am aware, but we're going to talk about exclusively the concealing properties of this product. So I have 2 shades here, but my true shade is this one, the shade Buff. And I will say the one thing about this is sometimes the product can fall out. I know that's so annoying, but it can fall out if you pull the cap too vigorously, and then the product just kind of flies out. So just be warned for that. I still will repurchase this because I love this. This is one that I love for concealing around the face. So this is the shade here. It's a really good shade match for me, the shade Buff. Now, I love this. I don't have any creasing with this, and I also do for my under eyes, and I also don't have any runny mascara with this, which is really nice. Again, I prefer it for around the face. Now, when I use it under my eyes, it's great. I love it. It's nice. However, I prefer a liquid concealer, which is why I don't prefer to use this under my eyes. Now, for around the face, I'm obsessed with this, and I cannot stop. I use it on my acne, my hyperpigmentation. It blends like a dream. It does not cling to dryness. It does not have any issues sitting on top of acne. It doesn't enhance like any kind of texture that you might have with whatever you are trying to cover, even if it's not dryness. Overall, I'm a really, really big fan of this, and I mean, I've talked about this a million times, so I feel like it's not a shock to anyone, but this is an incredible concealer for concealing around the face, and it's so creamy, so thin, so it doesn't feel like you're wearing a ton of makeup. Even when I wear it, and I'm not wearing like a full beat or, you know, anything on my actual face, and I'm just wearing this to cover stuff up because I'm doing a no makeup day, let's say, it blends like a dream and it doesn't look like makeup, which is amazing, and I really enjoy it. And the best way I like to apply is I like to take it just on the back of my hand or wherever, take a little bit of that, warm up the product. In general, stuff that's in a stick, I like to warm up, and then just kind of tap it where I need it, whether it's under my eyes or on hyperpigmentation, tap it. If it's hyperpigmentation or acne, I let it sit, I let it marinate for about a minute, then I blend it out, and the coverage is incredible. I can build it up to get more of a full coverage, which I really, really love. I would say on average, it's more of a medium plus coverage concealer, but if you let it sit for long enough, you can kind of get that full coverage. You can obviously get more coverage if you apply more product, but for me, that's kind of a no-go because I don't love having too much product on. But anyways, I am a really big fan. Now we have one from EXA Beauty. I really like this concealer. What is the shade I have in this? The shade 27. This is a really nice formula. It's nice and thin. It's nice medium coverage. And I'm just going to put this on the back of my hand here. I'm going to have to move to the other hand soon. So this is the shade here. It gives me some nice brightness. And EXA Beauty in general, I mean, you know that their foundation is like my obsession of life. Their complexion products are just elite. It's so nice. It's so easy to blend. It's very thin, but it gives you nice coverage, which I really enjoy. This is one that I do like to let sit for about 30 seconds to a minute, depending on how distracted I am. And then I blend it out with my finger. You can blend it out with a brush, but I do find that I like the warmness of my skin. I hate that description, but I like to kind of warm it up, and blending it with my finger just blends it really, really nicely. It's a nice thin formula, and I don't find that I have a ton of creasing or anything like that. I've used it around my face as well. I like it around my face. I prefer it for my under eyes personally. However, it is still nice. I don't find that it's super clingy or anything like that. But again, if I have to go with concealing hyperpigmentation and stuff like that, I like the Merit or I like the CL concealer. Those are my two kind of favorites of the ones that I've mentioned so far. And really in general, I'm just going to be very frank and honest. Of all the concealers I'm going to talk about today, those are the two that I grab for concealing acne, hyperpigmentation, or anything else that's on my face. Okay, now we're going to move on to one that literally doesn't crease. It does not crease. And every time I say that, I know people are like, yeah, but it creases. No, this one literally doesn't crease. This and the Victoria Beckham Beauty one, I would say, are the least creasy of all the concealers, in the sense where I don't have to worry about letting it sit for a second and blending it out to avoid creasing. You know, it's just so good. And I have 3 shades. The Iris and Romeo concealer. I love this concealer. I've talked about this a million times. I have 3 shades. So I have the shade 5, the shade 6, and the shade 7. The shade 7 is my true shade. I really, really enjoy this. I'm going to swatch the true shade just because I feel like maybe I'll do all of them. So the shade 7, it's this one here. I hope that it's focusing so you can see. There you go. So that's the shade 7 right here. Then we have this shade, which is the shade 6. The shade 6 here. And then the shade 5 is very bright. It's very bright, I am aware. But I just like having all the options. And then this is the shade 5. And this is a great medium coverage. I can get a little bit more like a medium plus coverage if I kind of build it up, or let it sit a little bit longer. But in general, it's more of a medium coverage to medium plus coverage concealer, depending on, again, those 2 factors. It's nice. It's hydrating. It does not, and I'm being so serious, it does not grease. No eye oil, eye oil is crazy, but under eye oil, regular eye cream, no eye cream, it doesn't crease. Face cream under my eyes instead of eye cream does not crease. I've tested this 1,000 ways, and I've gotten so many comments from you guys that watch my videos that you have the same experience and you're so shocked it doesn't crease, especially like For us people that have creasy under eyes, sometimes the creasing is just inevitable because, again, your face moves and stuff is gonna crease. It's gonna move around a little bit. And a tip for if you feel like concealer, no matter what, creases for you, let it crease. Then take a beauty sponge or a brush, whatever, take it, tap it out where it creased, then set it with powder, and you'll be good to go. Because sometimes you gotta just let stuff crease, tap out the creasing, and then you're usually good to go, especially if you set it with powder. This one plays well with powder. I do enjoy it around the face, but again, I prefer other things around my face. And I find that it has a nice natural finish. It is, again, great coverage, exactly kind of where I like my coverage to be. And it's super comfortable to wear. It's a nice thin formula, so you're not feeling, you're not noticing that you're wearing a ton of makeup. It is a very nice formula, and I'm a really big fan. Then next up, we have this one from Haus Labs. And this concealer is one that I know so many people love, and I totally understand why. I'm going to do a swatch right here. This shade is so brightening. It's actually kind of crazy. I have the shade, what is it? 22 Light Medium Golden. I picked the shade that they kind of recommended for the foundation that I have from them, which is 330 Medium Cool. But I do find that this is a little bit too bright. So this is the shade. This is for someone with a different skin tone, but I still use it, but I use it as more of a brightening shade, or when I'm fully pale, no kind of bronzer or anything like that. It is a really nice coverage concealer. Again, I would say it's medium to medium plus coverage. It's nice. It is one that you can use around the face. I've used it even though it looks bright on my face. I still used it to kind of see how it played with dryness and all of that. It was fine. I prefer it for under the eyes. It is really nice. I would say in terms of texture, it is on the thin side, but it also has it's not like a super liquidy formula, which I do enjoy. Sometimes it's nice to have something that's less liquidy because then you don't have to let it dry down as much. And this one, if I don't let it dry down, I'm totally fine. If I do let it dry down, I like a 30-second dry down for this one, but it is really nice. It's a comfortable wear. Overall, I'm a really big fan. Again, I prefer to wear it under the eyes. I let it dry down for about 30 seconds, and then I like to blend it out because it is a little bit drier. So I don't like to let it sit too long because then I just feel like then it takes a little bit more elbow grease to blend out. You don't want anything to dry down for too long, but you kind of have to experiment and find what kind of dry down time works for each concealer. But I like the coverage. Again, medium plus coverage, in my opinion, you can get. And comfortable wear. I feel like a very little bit of this one goes a long way, which is really nice. And in general, I feel like with concealer, less is more. Apply a little bit, blend it out. If you need more, apply more. Next up, we're going to talk about the Tower 28, which is arguably the brightest shade that I have in a concealer. The stickers that don't stay are really annoying, so I don't actually know the name of the shade. I feel like it's not Bed-Stuy, but it's something like that. I'm going to do a little swatch on my hand over here just so you can see. So this is the shade. It's very brightening. I would say that this one is like a true medium coverage concealer. It is nice. It is a thinner formula, and this one I do like to let sit and marinate for a little bit. I would say 30 seconds to a minute. I like to blend it out then with a brush, a sponge, or my fingers. I kind of prefer with this formula to blend with a brush and then go over it with a sponge if I feel like I want to kind of really meld it into the skin. I feel like that's when it looks its best, but it's a nice formula. I feel like the coverage is great. Again, medium coverage. A little bit of this goes a long way. For me, I find that this one does crease a little bit if I don't let it kind of marinate and sit and kind of dry down and make it to be a little bit of a thicker formula, because I'm not really sure what, but I do get a little bit more creasing with this one than I do others. However, if I let it sit for, again, that up to a minute, you can even let it sit for longer. I've let it sit for like 2 minutes, but that to me felt like I let it sit a little bit too long. But I let it kind of marinate and sit. When I do that, I don't really have an issue with creasing, but that is something to remember because sometimes formulas just need to dry down a little bit for them to not really have any creasing. And this is one of those formulas for me and my under eyes. However, I do really like this. This is one that is really, really thin. So it really doesn't look like anything. Not really, really thin where it's like water, right? But it's thin. So it really doesn't look like anything on the skin, which is great. I love a real natural looking concealer for the under eyes. I don't like when makeup looks makeup-y. I think most people feel that way. But that is the Tower 28 concealer. It's nice. I do enjoy it. And the shade I got is for someone that is way paler than me. It's like a true, really brightening shade. Now, of the two brighter ones, I do prefer the House Labs over the Tower 28 concealer, just because I feel like it works best with my type of under eye, and I like the less thin formula of the House Labs, and the fact that it's just a little bit drier and less wet, whereas the Tower 28 one is more wet, but they're both great formulas. And you can use the Tower 28 one on hyperpigmentation and all of that. I prefer to just use it under my eyes, but you can use it. But again, my preference are the CL and the Merit Beauty concealers. Now let's talk about one that also is newer in the sense that it kind of launched towards the end of last year, the Sarah Creel concealer. I wear the shade 5 in this. I'm making that up. No, the shade 5, and this is a really good shade match for me. I am a really, really big fan of this concealer, and I feel like, okay, I'm running out of real estate here. We have the shade right here. It's a nice shade match. It gives me brightness, but it isn't so bright that it's like, whoa, girl. It's nice. It gives me some brightness, but it isn't overly bright, and it is easy to kind of blend, and if I use it around my face, it works well too. I really enjoy this. This is a nice concealer. I don't really have any issues with creasing with this one, which is really nice. I just want to say the most crease-proof concealer is the Iris and Romeo one by far, but this one I don't really have any creasing. This is one I don't love to set with a lot of powder. Okay, I have a hair floating on my dog's hair is everywhere. This is one again that I don't love to set with a lot of powder. I go very light-handed with the powder with this one. When I over powder it, I don't love the way that my under eyes look by the end of the day, just because I feel like it by the end of the day looks more makeup-y when I do set it with powder or a lot of powder. I will lightly set it just so that, you know, I don't have any issues with my mascara running or anything like that. However, again, I go in with a really, really light amount of powder. And what I like to do is kind of like when I take my foundation and I get the foundation all in a fluffy brush and then I apply it, and that's called priming the foundation brush. I kind of like to prime my powder brush by getting all the powder in the brush if it's a loose powder, and then just really lightly tapping it. That way I'm not over applying it and kind of shocking the concealer, if you will, by putting way too much powder on top, and then it end up looking crepey, creasy, and all of that. It's a really nice concealer. This is one that I've been grabbing a ton, and it is one that I am kind of rotating right now with my favorite concealers for my under eyes, and I am so unbelievably happy with this, and I'm really happy that I got it. It's an overall just a great concealer, and I know the brand Sarah Creel kind of focuses on the age 40 plus, but I think that it would work for anyone. They're hydrating, comfortable to wear. Overall, so far, I mean, of Sarah Creel products, it's by far my favorite, and definitely the one that I'm like, oh yeah, this is worth the money. The other products that they have, I can kind of take or leave. They're nice. However, the concealer is really, really nice. And if you were like wondering and you weren't really sure, I think it's really worth a try to at least maybe like try a little bit out and get a little sample if you can, to try out, because I really enjoy it. Up, we have the Ciaté Beauty concealer. Now this is their brightening concealer. I got the shade Sunbeam. No, I made that up. Not even close. Warm Sun Glow. I find that this formula is a little bit liquidy and thin. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do like to let it sit for a little bit before I blend it out, because I find if I don't, then I can get some creasing towards the end of the day. And even though it's thin and all of that, I do find for placing it around my face, let's say if I wanted to color correct maybe a little bit of an acne mark or something like that, or a hyperpigmentation mark that is a little bit on the drier side, I found that it did cling to that. So if you have dryness under your eyes, that's just something to note. But the shades are more of a color corrector shade, which I really like because I like stuff that's kind of dual purpose. However, if I were to compare it to, let's say, other products that I use for color correcting, this is not my favorite for that. I would rather just use a color corrector where I need it under my eyes and then go on with a kind of concealer that gives me the coverage that I want that isn't quite as thin. Coverage on this one is a light coverage, so if you like something that's more of a medium coverage or full coverage, this is not going to be for you. It does do some color correcting, but I do feel like it could do more. And because of that, I would rather just stick with a color corrector than use something like this. However, I do like it. And when I'm like having a no makeup kind of makeup day and I want something that's more of a thin kind of light coverage formula, that's a really thin formula, because maybe let's say I'm not wearing anything on my face, this is nice. However, there are other concealers that I enjoy more than this. And this is, again, the shade Warm Sun Glow. Is it Warm Sun Glow or Warm Sunbeam? Sun Glow. I'm just losing my mind. Next up, something that's more true color correcting is this one from Kosas. It's their Revealer Concealer color correcting one. This is the newest of all the concealers, and I kind of felt it would be remiss if I didn't mention it because the Ciaté one does have some color correcting tendencies. So I got the shade Fantasy in this one. And it's more of a peachy tone, as you can see, or at least I hope you can see. And it does a nice job at color correcting. I will say, of between this and their True Concealer, this is my favorite. I feel like the True Concealer, at least on me, we had some running with my mascara, even if I set it, whereas this, I don't really have that issue. I just need to make sure to set it. It's a comfortable wear product. It's comfortable to wear under concealer. If I had to pick this or my favorite color corrector, which is this one right here, the EXA Beauty color corrector, I'm gonna go here because this one is a thinner formula. It does not crease, it dries down, and so then you're really good to go. Whereas I feel like the Kosas one takes a little bit more time to dry down and it's not quite as thin, so when you're layering it with other concealers, it's just more apparent. It's not bad or anything like that, but this is so thin and so good, and it does, in my opinion, an incredible job of color correcting. I have two shades here. I have the shade Peach and Deep Peach. I mix them together sometimes, wear them alone, separate, depending on kind of how tan I am. But overall, I'm a really big fan of the EXA Beauty color corrector. So anything else that kind of claims it color corrects or does color correcting really has to stand up for those, and neither of these, in my opinion, are quite as good as the EXA Beauty color corrector. However, if I had to pick between the Ciaté one, which I know is more of like a brightening concealer, but it does have kind of like a color correcting quality to it, or the Kosas one, I would probably go with the Kosas one because the Kosas one does also give you a little bit more coverage than the Ciaté Beauty one, which gives you light coverage. If you're looking for a color corrector, I would recommend the EXA Beauty one over the Kosas one, but the Kosas one is more of a hydrating product under the eyes. For me, I do tend to have a little bit drier under eyes, so something's hydrating is great, but I need something that's hydrating that also is thin. And for me, and what I like for my color corrector, I prefer something that dries down. The EXA one isn't drying by any means, but it is not quite as full hydrating as the Kosas one. But again, if I had to pick, the EXA one all the way. And yeah, that is it for my concealer comparison video. I would love to know down below, what is your favorite concealer? I love to hear from you guys. I love to hear what you guys are loving to use. I like to know what I should maybe be grabbing. Like, should I be grabbing certain things? Let me know down below. If you want me to find a dupe for something, let me know down below. All the things. Leave a comment. That is it for this video. That is it for my concealer comparison video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.